are highlighting the member spotlight, CL Smith's Doug Kremer. And Doug, if you can go ahead and just give us a little bit of an introduction about what CL Smith provides.
Sure, absolutely. We are CL Smith is a manufacturer and distributor, primarily distributor, but also do some manufacturing of packaging. And when I say packaging, we do a lot in the industrial sector, business to business. Think of things like steel drums, plastic pails, corrugate boxes, plastic containers, glass jars, paint cans, tin cans, anything that we could ship out to our customers that they can put their products in that then go out to market. That's really what CL Smith has done for the last 48 years, going on 49 years. Started by the Smith family back in 1975. Recently had an ownership change, so I'm sure that's something we'll get into. But that's our business. We're provide packaging solutions to
And
our
Doug,
customers.
very, very good. And what was your path into HR?
I started out of college. I had that. My dad kind of flipped the lid when I told him I was going to be a psychology major. So, but my interest was in when I was in school in industrial organizational psychology and employee relations, human resources. So when I graduated from college, I'm a St. Louis guy and went to St. Louis University. When I graduated, I was working an internship for Merritt's, and I stayed on at Merritt's, helping them start up a new customer service call center out in the out off of Olive Road in 270, and did a lot of hiring and recruiting, and really, got my feet wet there. Kind of baptism by fire. I was a one-man show and trying to hire 100 call center reps. So I did that for about 6 months or so, and then I got my first full-time job at a manufacturing company down in the Hill neighborhood in St. Louis City called Owens, Illinois, and they're a plastics manufacturer. So
Okay.
make blow molded plastics. And I started in employee relations. I was in that for a few years and somehow got moved into operations and was in operations doing all sorts of things, running production floors. And so I got a lot of good experience there running warehouses. And then about 10 years ago, the plant that I was at relocated, and I ended up coming over to CL Smith, started a new career here, and got back in to the HR field.
Back into HR and back into plastics, huh?
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. So it's been quite a journey. I think my time working in manufacturing really helped me. I think I'm much I understand things much better now than I did when I first started. So
I love your background because you have this mix of both operations and HR. And I'm going to throw you a curveball just a little bit, but so often we talk here at AIM of the importance of the HR team having a seat at the table, right? You've heard Phil say that before. Because you've had a seat in the organization from different ways, can you speak maybe to the importance of how important it is for HR to be integral to some of those decisions?
yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it's really evolved, over the years since I've been in the workforce. I think initially HR was kind of one of those necessary evils, and they weren't really consulted. It was always reactive. There was always, hey, we've got this issue, we've got this problem, whether it's disciplinary issues. We need somebody just, left the organization. We need somebody. Can you find candidates quickly? Everything was really reactive. And so we were constantly fighting fires and didn't really have that seat at the table, right? We were just more of a kind of a HR's here. They're not bringing a lot to the organization. Over the years, I think what's really changed from my point of view is now being ahead of things. Things like employee surveys, finding out what people want, stay interviews, creating one-to-one interview templates for managers to use, things like that that really help before there's an issue, right? To be more proactive and preventive versus reactive. And I think that's really what I've seen evolve, even as far as hiring strategies, building a bench of candidates, networking, things like that. It's changed quite a bit from when I first got involved.
I love that perspective. And I see that too in the organizations that I'm in, that HR is really helping to leverage what is the biggest asset in the organization, and that is, our staff and our employees and the people that are working with us. So being able to have that insight and really understanding things and how it fits into the overall strategy, I love the idea of it being more of a proactive position. And so thank you for that insight. And I know one of the things that you had to be proactive about just in conversations with you was really compensation. And I know that was a challenge that you took head on. Can you talk to me just a little bit about what that looked like and maybe some actions you took to alleviate the problem?
Sure. So, I mean, things are changing. It's especially really intensified over the last few years, with the way that the wages have gone and compensation has gone. And not just, the compensation, the benefits and everything that's tied in with that. So really, it's a challenge. And what we're seeing a lot is that, we have a very long tenured group of folks here, right? We've got people that have been with CL Smith. I think our average tenure is probably about 13 years. So, I mean, we've got people that have been here since the start for 45 years, since 1977, 78. So we've got a lot of folks that have been here for a while. And what we were seeing is that some of the existing folks, when they were brought in, the market was at a certain level for compensation. And so they've received increases over the years, but lately things have just ballooned. And so now as somebody retires or they leave the organization or we look to add to the organization, as we're going out and recruiting people and talking to people in those roles, and because unemployment's low, so most folks are working, it takes something compensation-wise to pull them away. And what we're seeing is that market level has shifted. And so now when we're bringing somebody, it's very difficult to hire a new customer service person and find out that they're making $2 to $3 more an hour than your average folks are making. So now what do you got to do? So we've leaned on AIM quite a bit for that. And it's been a great partnership, specialized compensation studies that Mike Mack has done for us, just the general solutions team, and we could talk later, but recently, about 2.5 years ago, we were acquired by a private equity firm. And now we have got companies all across the United States, California, New Jersey, Georgia, in the Chicago area. We've even got one in Canada, one in Oklahoma City. So we've got companies all over the U.S. now, all sister companies, all do the same thing that we do. And so I'm helping now with recruiting for those organizations. And when they ask, hey, we need to get a CSR, customer service rep in the Philadelphia area, I have no idea what the going rate is. So I can look online and I can see 1,000 different ideas, $15 an hour, $28 an hour. So what I do is I use AIM quite a bit there because they use the Economic Research Institute for data, and that's really accurate data. And so I will reach out to them and say, can you help me? If I want to hire a customer service person in Philadelphia, what's the going rate? Tell me. And they give a great breakdown, just things like that have really been helpful to us as we're trying to navigate that. And then go ahead and take a look at our existing folks and what do we need to do to get market increases to get them to where they need to be.
So Doug, that's great that you're using AIM for all that. I got a question for you. How'd you get associated with AIM? I'm just curious.
Oh gosh, God, it's been so many years ago. When I came on here at CL Smith, I want to say Susan Glasscock is our account rep, and she's wonderful,
She
right?
is great.
She is absolutely wonderful, and love having her. And I really consider it a partnership. And I want to say it was, God, years and years ago, early on in my career here, I was invited somehow, I think, to an HR roundtable. And I went one day, didn't know what to expect, and sat in and listened. And what I was just blown away by was I'm not the only one, right? I mean, all these people have the same problems that I'm facing, and I'm listening to all these people talk real world problems and how they're addressing them. And I said, this is something I want to be involved with, And so then Susan has taken us from there, and we've used everything. We use the Every Class Pass, right? We get involved in that so that we can get online and we can get online training. I think this past year we've gone through probably 50, maybe more.
Wow.
Using the online, the training courses that are there, people throughout our organization, from everything from accounting for non-accountants to, stuff for HR, and FMLA. And I mean, we use it for everything. And so it's just a great deal for us. We use that, we use specialized training. We've had Scott Paris, who's come out and done specialized training for our leadership teams, which has been wonderful, and just all the different things that we use of our solutions team I reach out to all the time. And then, Tanya now, working with her, is we're going to do we have been years since we've done an employee survey. And so we're going to work with Tanya to do an employee survey in 2024 and do it for the whole group. So companies that are in California. So yeah, Val, a bunch of years ago through, I think, a roundtable, and just immediately fell in love with what they offered. And especially when you're a kind of a one-person show and you need help. I mean, I need resources. I don't know everything. And I was out of the HR field for probably 20 years before I got back into it. So, how much things have changed. And when I need something, a policy, a procedure, what do we do for this? Bert, I've reached out to you on things, COVID.
Yep.
Man, if we wouldn't have had this week at work when COVID hit, I don't know what I would have done. Just the advice and the things that I learned there. And all of our leadership team came to me. I suddenly became the COVID expert, which I didn't want to be, but yeah, so just a wonderful partnership.
That's great.
That's developed.
That's great to hear.
I think I just want to pause and just recognize the AIM, everybody that's at AIM. It makes us happy to hear that, right? I think we have a lot of people on our team who genuinely like to help. And so for all of you that I know listen, good job. And Doug is the product of that and what you've been able to do. Doug, you brought up the engagement survey, and it's interesting because in our first conversation, you talked to me about how important you felt like that engagement story was. And I think there's a quote that hangs on my wall that I think goes with today. And it's like, there's never a lack of knowledge, only a lack of asking for help. Mm-hmm. And you might say, how does that relate back to an engagement survey? But I think sometimes our employees will help us by giving us feedback so that we can see exactly, hey, here's some areas that we would like some help on. But I know in talking to a lot of my HR connections and members, sometimes companies are terrified to send out a survey. They're scared about that feedback. And I know you're a proponent of the survey and what you've gotten out of them. So I wonder if you could talk to that fear. And that concern a lot of times that owners will have about, I'm not sure we want to open that can of worms. Can you talk a little bit to that and how you've used the surveys?
Sure, no question. I have a great quote too that I love. I love the quote that you had, but somebody that I work with, Les Landis, is just a great guy. And he and I talk a lot about employee engagement. And, one of his quotes is, stop treating people as a source of the problem and start treating them as a source of the solution. And really, that's really, it is scary. Right? When you have a company and you go out, because when you ask something, you may not always like what you hear. But the thing is, if you don't address it, and especially this has become increasingly important, and as I try to convey to our leadership team, is the best form of right now of recruitment is retainment, right? I mean, if we can keep the people we've got that have that skill and that knowledge, because we know how difficult it is to bring new people in and the ramp up time that it takes. So I think it is scary for leadership because they may, people may say things we don't want to hear, but I think what you do when you do that is you have to be transparent. So you go out and you ask people, okay, what do you think? You got to communicate. You have to, and communication is a big thing. People want to know what's going on, and even if maybe they're not directly responsible or have stake in it, they want to understand, what's going on with the company. They want to have input. Here are things that I think, and they're a great source of how to get things done and the best way to get things done because they're close to it every day. And I think the thing is, too, that we learned is when you do an engagement survey, you're going to get a wide variety of ideas and things that you want to do. But you can't ignore them because then it's better that you didn't ask at all. Right. But what you have to do is be very honest and upfront and just say, these are a lot of great suggestions. Some of them we're going to be able to implement right away. Some we may not be able to implement. Some may take us a little while. But as long as you're communicating that, people at least know. And they don't feel like they were asked a question and then ignored with their feedback. So that's been important for us.
Doug, you've been a great guest for us today. I hope people enjoyed hearing a little bit about your story. And thank you for your use of AIM and the Ogletree and this week at work. I do want to get to our poll questions just really quickly. And so, Nick, if you could put the results of the poll questions up. So when you face a crisis in your professional life, generally, where is the first place you go for help? And look at that, about a third of the respondents go to professional organizations, quarter turn to their leadership team. And Tanya, like you, about, getting close to 20% turn to family or other colleagues. So interesting results there in that poll question. Nick, what do you have for our second poll question here? So in your current position, do you feel like you're expected to be more of a generalist or a specialist? And it looks like the results are pretty much in the middle, that you're expected to be both. So that just goes, that's kind of par for the course as far as I'm concerned for HR, that you all in HR wear many, many hats and are expected to know everything. Doug, you said you don't know everything. I'm glad to hear you say that, because none of us know everything. We're learning new stuff every day. And then finally, for those that are not owners, what would be your first reaction if you were told ownership had changed? Doug, I know you mentioned that you've gone through some private equity ownership changes recently. I'm glad you were able to share a little bit about that. But when you were told of the ownership changes, did any of these words that you see in this word cloud up here come to mind for you?
Every one of them, right? I mean, people were initially worried, scared. What does this mean for my job? When you hear private equity, a lot of times, oh my gosh, they're coming in to cut heads. And it's been the opposite for us. We've grown and it's been a good experience, but definitely still shock when you're owned by a family for 45 plus years and now there's a new owner. Uncertainty, what does it mean for the future? Every one of them. Every one of them.
Well, I appreciate that very much. So, Doug, you've been great. Join us next time.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link, aimea.org/thisweekatwork, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.